Hi everyone, and welcome to today's video where I'm going to be talking about the two latest Dev Diaries regarding the latest unannounced Paradox game, Project Caesar, that we totally don't know anything about or what it's called, and it's definitely not EU5. Right, let's get right into it. So today we're going to be going over the Dev Diary from April 10th right here and the Dev Diary that dropped just yesterday on April 17th, and both of these Dev Diaries sort of focus on the economic aspect of the game, and there are some very cool things over here that we need to check out. Of course, if you've already went through them, maybe this video won't be that entertaining, but nonetheless, for those of you that don't know, let's take a look at what Johan here has to say. So first, let's take a look at this latest image that has been offered up to us right here. Very, very nice. We can see some, boat right there in the background with the flag of Congo. No, not really, but I'm really enjoying this art right here, man. This obviously looks like some Caribbean plantation or something like that. We got a windmill here. Maybe it's the Dutch or whatever, but yeah, it's always cool to get some art. All right, let's jump into it. Welcome to the 7th edition of Tinto Talks, where we talk about really super secret stuff that is hidden behind the code name of Project Caesar. Today we'll look into what makes up the economy in Project Caesar. Obviously, we'll go into much more detail on some of those aspects later in Tinto Talks. Right now, though, we'll go through the incomes and expenses of a country in the game, and this is super exciting, man. I'm sure lots of you guys have been itching to get a little bit of info on this part of the game. All right, every month you have running incomes and expenses that need to be balanced, and if your balance is positive, your gold is increased and you can use that gold to invest in other things. This is familiar. And with balancing of incomes and expenses, of course, there are sliders, yes, but I do think that will be expanded on what we have in EU4. Having some buttons for just a few possible options for taxes or expenses like an Imperator is not really fitting for a grand strategy game with deep economical gameplay. Once again, some more very nice art of ducats and books right here. I can imagine this is in the office of some Venetian nobleman, perhaps. All right, incomes. If we start with income, you have trade-related incomes, which is a system we'll delve deep into in early May, as well as diplomatically related income. What's up with that? So obviously, trade-related income is, let's just compare it to straight-up trade from EU4, and diplomatic-related income, once again, comparing it to EU4, could be like knowledge sharing. Maybe if you're a subject, your overlord is subsidizing you, regular subsidies, or even loans that you get from other nations. You also gain gold from provinces, not locations by the way, that sell surplus food that they cannot store in their local market. Neither of these you directly control with any slider though. Alrighty. The bulk of most countries' income will come through taxes though, and taxes in Project Caesar are really different than before. First of all, every estate has a possible tax base, a concept we'll delve into much more detail next week. This you can attempt tax from them, but every estate has a maximum tax you can take from them, which depends on your laws and their privileges and how much power they have in your country. The higher the tax you can take from them, the lower their satisfaction equilibrium will become. Some examples of tax affecting things include the Catholic religion, which limits the taxes on clergy, and also the something in Latin that I'm going to try and pronounce, estate privilege for the nobles, which reduces the tax they pay. Finally, for something that has existed in some older of our games, we have minting. Now, what is that, you may ask? Minting is the possibility to get more money by printing more coins. Yes, I remember minting was very popular a few years ago. It just has the slight drawback of increasing your inflation the more you do it. Alrighty, and here's a screenshot right here that we can take a look at. So this is the minting slider. Basically, we slide this and we see how much money we print. Now, obviously, this is inflation right here. So right now, since we're not minting anything, obviously, according to this screenshot, our inflation is going down. This is how much we're taxing the nobility. So this is how much money we're making from them. And this is how happy they are regarding the tax we, have on them. If we slide this all the way over here to the max, we'll probably gain like way more money than this, but these guys will become dissatisfied. Obviously, since this is probably a Catholic nation, the clergy isn't being taxed right here. This is the burghers, and I guess this little dark blue bar right here is actually how much we can actually tax them at maximum based on the privileges and stuff that they have. So I guess the nobility are being taxed the maximum we can at this point. The burghers, we can tax a little bit more, but obviously we can see that they already aren't very happy. In fact, I guess this is indifferent, and this is how much we're making from them, and this is how much we're taxing the commoners. Obviously, they're super happy, so we could probably go ahead and tax them some more if this is what that screenshot is representing. Of course, I'm assuming that this dark blue bar is the max tax that you can put on them. Then we have other income right here. So no income from interest. I guess we haven't given any loans to anyone ourselves, so we're not making money from that. We're not making any money from trade or from diplomacy. We're making 0.01 ducat a month from selling food. No income from mercs. I guess this is sort of like condottieri. And other income, well, I guess we'll see what that's all about. So I'm liking everything that we've seen right here. If this isn't clear enough for you, the screenshot does explain it in a pretty nice way if you know what you're looking at. So definitely liking everything I'm seeing so far. It obviously seems much more in depth and stuff like that compared to what we have in EU4. And as it says right here, we have the possibility to tax the commoners a fair bit more. Obviously, since they're super happy, we can tax them quite a lot more. Now let's go into the expenses. We all do love gaining gold, but sadly we also have to spend it. Listen, you gotta spend money to make money, am I right? And while we can reduce some of the spending, we cannot completely avoid all of it, obviously. First of all, we have the cost of the court. This is something that is directly correlated to the economic base of your country. And if you spend less gold than expected, your legitimacy or equivalent applicable government power will decrease over time. And the more you spend, the more legitimacy can increase. There are advances, laws, and other things that impact how much you need to spend right here. Obviously, if I'm looking at this in a sort of a dramatized fashion, right? Not in the game aspect. So imagine you're like a noble and, a king or whatever, and the people expect you to spend the crown's money to do things, fix our streets, blah, 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 build a church, blah, blah, blah. If you're not doing that, if you're hoarding all that money for yourself, these guys are not going to like you. They're going to be like, hey, this guy sucks. He doesn't do anything. Let's revolt, blah, 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 related to the legitimacy. Then we have the cost for your standing army and navy, where spending less reduces their fighting capability. This is nothing new to our grand strategy games, and I'm not sure why I need to mention this here. Well, good that it's mentioned, but this is pretty much exactly like in EU4. Army maintenance, naval maintenance. Simple as that, boys. Port maintenance is another common economic expense from our games, which is here as well. If you don't pay garrisons, they don't tend to stick around, obviously. Culture. This is an entirely new concept which will become available in the age of Renaissance, where you can invest money to get, to be talked about later, while also impacting your prestige. So, just a quick mention of something right here. Nothing much I can add to this, honestly. You can also decide how much you wish to spend on your colonial charters, which is a new system we'll talk about later this year. So, even though it's a new system, think of it sort of like, a colonial maintenance, that slider in EU4, right? If it's maxed out, you spend it 2 ducats per month on the initial colony, then it, increases gradually as you, get more colonies. The second colony, you're going to pay 6 for it. The other one, you got 3 colonies, you're going to be paying like 18 for it and stuff like that. So, but this is going to work similarly, but also different. We'll see what that's all about later on. Finally, the last thing you can impact with a slider is your investment in stability. The cost for how much your investments are needed depends on the size of your country, with different laws and societal values impacting them as well. Stability in itself ranges from plus 100 to minus 100 and will decay towards 0 on its own. There are 2 other ways to impact your stability gain besides investing gold, as mentioned here. One of them relates to the cabinet system, but another, the cabinet is sort of like an amalgamation of the advisors, which we talked about earlier. But another is a more long-term impact from how your country is built up, as it's based upon how many clergy pops you have of your state religion compared to the total population. Interesting. There are other expenses, as you can see below, but one important thing to mention is that provinces that lack food will try to buy it from the local market. All right, so these are our expenses right here. So this is the cost of the court, and this is pretty much the first thing that was mentioned that everyone, sort of expects you to spend and is going to be pretty relevant right here. This is army maintenance, as we can see right here. I don't know why these buttons are... Yeah, okay, this is army maintenance and naval maintenance, so they're maxed out. Obviously, this is how much we're spending. Navies are so expensive. Or isn't there an army? Maybe there's no army or whatever. Yeah, fort maintenance too right here. Culture. So interesting. We don't know too much about that, but... yeah, obviously nothing is being spent on that, maybe because that thing isn't activated until the age of Renaissance. Cost of colonies, we're not colonizing, obviously, but it's maxed out. And then stability, we're not spending any on stability. Not paying interest, trade expenses, I guess, is importing stuff. And diplomacy, once again, I mentioned earlier, buying food, hiring mercenaries, exploration costs. So we got these expenses right here that are same as these bottom incomes down here, which are, I guess... more other things related. Yeah, it's pretty much the same thing. So you can make money from the same things that you can spend money on. I'm guessing this is all going to be more diplomacy related. Very interesting. Maybe we should cut down on our fleet, and maybe we don't need all those forts. Our standing army of 200 brave footmen is enough. So yeah, obviously a very tiny army. Next week, we'll talk more in depth about how the tax base functions, how the food system works, and some other related issues. So yeah, very nice right here, man. I'm liking this initial entry into the economy quite a lot. It's explained very nicely, and it's quite obvious and clear cut from the screenshots that we've gotten. Honestly, everything that I've seen in this dev diary, I am enjoying quite a lot. I like the more in-depth system. I like the separate tax. Pretty much, the tax in EU4 has been split into, let's say, 4 different types of tax, which is going to be the most relevant, at least I think, for the early portion of the game. And all these other things right here are very nice. Although I'm very excited to see how these other ones down here that weren't talked about that much works, both the income and expenses. So yeah, very, very cool first dev diary regarding the economy. Let me know in the comments below what you think about this initial, showcase of the economy that we've had and of these screenshots. I think the economy, man, in EU5 is about to be absolutely insane. I don't think it's going to be annoying and stupid as it was in Victoria 3. Not stupid, but I feel like it's a little bit overcomplicated. I guess it is an economy simulator pretty much, but definitely didn't need that much in-depth in EU5, but I'm excited that it is more in-depth than in EU4. So yeah, I'm liking everything that I've seen so far. Let's move on with the next dev diary right here from yesterday, April 17th, which also further talks about the economy. And let's see what we have to hear about that. All right, let's get into this next diary by taking a look at this new map image that was shared right here. Let's take a look at it, and obviously, man, from everything I can see right here, and based on my map knowledge, this is the island of Java. This is the island of Java, and if this is a political map mode, this should be Sunda, and this should be Majapahit, from what I can tell. If they're the same color, Sunda is blue and Majapahit is red, if these guys existed in the same place in this time frame, of course. But yeah, looking pretty cool, man. I like that the colors are so opaque. I like the little tree illustrations. Obviously, this is like 3 provinces right here that Sunda has, but so many more locations, man. Quite a lot. It's looking very, very nice, and quite a lot of details here from what I can see. Very nice map, man. You guys can analyze it more for yourself if you want. But let's get into it. Hello and welcome to the 8th iteration of Tinto Talks, where we talk about what we're doing in our very secret future game with the codename Project Caesar. By the way, on a completely unrelated note, Paradox Tinto has just announced our new expansion, Winds of Change, for EU4. Go check it out. It's cool contents and the trailer. Yes, a very nice DLC that I haven't talked about on this channel, but you're about to see a very, very nice guide from me regarding this DLC coming soon. This week, we'll continue to talk about the economic part of the game. Last week, we talked about the different items in the monthly budget, and now we'll continue with explaining some of the core concepts of the economy. Please be aware that all images here are tooltips or parts of tooltips, and some are very much work in progress. Alrighty, so loans and bankruptcy. As you all know, I literally cannot play EU4 without loans, so this is super, super important to me. Let's start with loans, which will work a fair bit differently than any other previous Paradox Grand Strategy game. At first glance, it's kind of similar to previous games where you can take a loan, you get money, and you pay interest on it for a set period of time. However, in Project Caesar, there are some new changes. Take a look at this work in progress tooltip for taking a loan. All right, take a loan. Take a loan of 23.67 ducats for 60 months with a yearly interest of 10%. 10%? What kind of loan is this, dude? Burger loans are 1% and regular ones are 4%. Jesus Christ. I'm not going to be very good at EU5, am I? The estates have made a 696.46 available for us to loan. The estates. Interesting. So this is a cool concept right here, man. Basically, I don't think money will be, apparating from thin air in EU5, but yeah, all the shock and awe aside, let's move on. Yeah, 10% interest is perfectly fair. In this game, you're not borrowing money from an abstract national bank, but instead, your internal loans are taken from what the estates have made available. The estates invest money they have not only in immediate gains for their own power or other ways that benefit the country or other redacted, but they also invest in having money available for the country where they will benefit from the interest. If there's no money to borrow from the estates available and you have no ducats left, you will go bankrupt, which is a little bit more severe than in, let's say, EU4. So let me just stop right there. Obviously, it's the very thing that, I noticed right here immediately, except for the 10%, is that we can immediately tell how much what's the maximum amount we can loan, right? Obviously, in EU4 it says you can take a maximum amount of this many loans, but let's see, 696.46 divided by 23.67, that's 29.4 loans. So that's not a lot of loans at all, man. That's not a lot of loans at all, but it's very nice to be able to see this right off the bat and sort of, immediately know your maximum or whatever. There's also another way to get gold. You can send a diplomat to one of the banking countries like Peruzzi and Bardi. If there's one that you know of within diplomatic range, to request a loan. Make sure you don't forget to pay them on time or default on the loans, or you may never be able to loan from them again. So I've actually never heard of these countries, and honestly, they sound more like family names to me. So could it be that, for example, in EU5, you don't borrow money from Florence, let's say. Instead, you borrow money directly from the Medici family or something like that. Or these, the landless countries that you can interact with in EU4, in EU5, sorry. I guess we have to see, but very cool things that I'm hearing right here. And honestly, I do think it's a lot better than the system we have in EU4. I do think it's a lot more realistic, so to say, and I do think you will need to manage your loan situation quite a lot more than in EU4, which might prove challenging for me, to say the least. No burger loans, though, apparently. I guess all loans are burger loans. At least the internal ones. Core concepts. So let's continue by taking a look at the tooltip for a location so we can quickly have a reference to some important aspects in the rest of the development diary. All right, so let's analyze this right here. So this is the location of Kalmar. The town of Kalmar is in the province of Östra Småland and is owned by Sweden. Okay, so the population in, this location is 8,445. It produces stone. They're Catholic, they're Swedish, this is the tax base, the market is Riga, they're not making food, so I guess they're importing it, and this is the climate, topography, vegetation, right? Enjoy the nice place for icons. Sadly, the form does not allow for nested tooltips like the game does. Food. If you notice the line of food above, you can see that Kalmar is not self-sufficient in food and needs to rely on the rest of Östra Småland for food, unless they buy it from the local market. So, this is how much food it produces. I guess this is what the peasants or slaves produce. These are modifiers, I guess, because it's continental climate. We produce 10% more because there's a river in it, 5% more because it's coastal, 5% more because it's a town. Basically, it's not. We talked about towns and cities in some earlier Dev Diaries, but because it's a town, there's more requirements for food, so that's like 10% less automatically. This is, I guess, based on, some of the trees that you can advance down on because it's traditional economy. 18% more because we have serfdom active, 5% more because the peasants are satisfied, 12.5% more, and I guess this is a type of government reform, feudal administration, 5% more. And this is how much all of these guys consume. Obviously, there's very few nobles and clerics, and these are the burghers and the peasants. Even the small town of Kalmar needs food from nearby locations. Very cool. Once again, a screenshot from an economic situation in the game, just like in the last Dev Diary right here. I'm liking this quite a lot. Very nice information being provided here. Primarily, there are a lot of burghers here that consume a lot of food. This is, of course, because it's a town, remember. There are also a lot of modifiers that impact how much food the location produces as well. If the granaries in Östra Småland are close to full, we would sell their surplus to the local market in Riga, but only get about 56% of the profit, as we only have 56% control in Kalmar. Very, very interesting. Did it say the control here somewhere? I guess it didn't. I guess it says it someplace else. If the entire province lacks food, we would have to buy food at 100% of the current price in that market. The price for food is different in each market and depends entirely on how much food is sold to that market. Very, very interesting. Very, very interesting right here. And it says that the local market is Riga, right? So maybe based on that control, the local market is Riga. But if we gain more control in Kalmar, we would be able to switch it to our own local market. Is that better or not? I guess we have to see. Now, moving on to taxes. We mentioned taxes in last week's Tinto Talk and especially mentioned tax base there. The tax base of an estate is based on their total of all their tax base in all the locations they are present in. So this is the tax base in Kalmar right here. Tax income is gained from taxing the profit, buildings, and resource gathering operations. The amount you can tax depends on the control of the location. So now it tells us the control, and this is how much tax we're making. This is the potential max tax we can get. So I guess our max control we can have right here is 58.2%, but it's just for some reason at 56.15. So we max it out, we can make slightly more, and this is the total maximum that we would eventually be able to, achieve of 0.76 ducats a month. Interesting. So the nobles, this is their tax base, this is their tax rate, this is how much they're giving us. The clergy as well, zero tax rate, we're Catholic. The burghers and I guess this is the peasants, what they're called over in Sweden. So yeah, lower tax rate for the nobles, obviously because of some privilege we have enacted. I guess this is the base tax rate that the burghers and the peasants are paying. But yeah, because these guys are, I guess, so poor, even though, we have this high tax rate, their tax base is very low, and that's why we're pretty much not making any money off of them. Or quickly find the error in this next tooltip. Well, I guess this is the error in that case. We're slowly increasing our control over Kalmar to 58.2%, so the tax base will be slowly increasing, and if we would get it to the 100 maximum, it would be even bigger. As you can see here, the nobles and the burghers have a fair bit of power here, and the peasants have basically none. Currently, we are able to tax more from the burghers each month and could probably go above 25% tax rate we have currently set on their estate. To clarify, only the money that is in the potential row exists. This right here, and anything you don't tax on that goes to the estates. So you get 0.05 ducats there, perhaps more, but paradox rounding, and the remaining 0.37 goes to the estates. I understand. Yeah, very, very cool. So the money doesn't, basically, the money that we don't get doesn't vanish into thin air. It goes to the estates, which I guess isn't bad in the early portion of the game. Moving on to raw materials. As you noticed in the tooltips above, we talked about raw materials and resource gathering operations. Every location has one raw material possible. Basically, this is trade goods that can be extracted. This includes things like lumber, stone, grain, amber, or copper. Of course, there are other ways to get access to raw materials than merely owning and controlling a location. Only peasants and slaves will work on gathering raw materials, and how many will work with it depends on how big of an infrastructure you have built up for that. Pops that are working with this will not be producing food unless the goods are food related. The maximum size of an infrastructure that can be built up depends on population, development, technologies, and societal values. So this is the raw goods right here. Kalmar produces 1 stone each month with 1,000 peasants or slaves. These are then sold for 0.7 ducats in the regal market. When fully upgraded, Kalmar can support 12,000 working with it. Expand mines in Kalmar will cost 44.45 ducats, take half a year, and will allow employment of 1,000 other peasants or slaves in the stone mines. During construction, it will require access to the following goods in the regal market. 0.1 lumber, but there's 0 available. Interesting, man. Very interesting. It seems very in-depth and very complex. We mentioned buildings in one tooltip earlier, and the next week we'll talk about how they work in Project Caesar. Very exciting too. Yeah, but obviously these screenshots right here that we've been shown so far, they're easier to grasp or whatever. But this final one right here regarding the raw goods or the upgrading of the mines over there or whatever, does seem pretty complex, man. Pretty complex. So there's obviously some other things that you need to take into account before, let's say, constructing or expanding the mines in Kalmar. 1,000 peasants or slaves more will work over there. Are they going to be the guys from the province? So that means, if there's 8,000 people here or whatever, I guess it's more. It doesn't matter. Will the food producing guys move to work here? Will all of them instantly go there? Will it be gradual? Will they move from other provinces? Then you got to take into account that you will need more food for the guys. But obviously, if the guy's making food, go work here, it's obviously the same guys, but we're still producing less food. If new guys move in, we'll still need more guys to produce food because there's new guys, right? So yeah, lots of things to consider here, man. Lots of things to consider here. Definitely going a lot more in depth in this 8th one right here than just the 7th one. And I'm still enjoying everything I've seen so far. I think this, at least for me, I'm talking here, I'm not very quick to catch up on things, boys. It will be a little more complex for me to grasp, and I do think we'll need some reading into these aspects. But as always, the way you grasp it is simply by playing. So I think even though there might be some things over here that I personally don't quite understand right off the bat, I think that just by playing and, seeing how things work and trial and error, I do think it will be pretty easy to grasp, right? Obviously, some of you guys are geniuses out there, man. You guys know immediately like, oh, this, bro, that's easy. You just do this, and that, right? But yeah, for those of us that are a little slower, for some of these things that have been shown right here, I think we will need a little bit of time to grasp it. So yeah, man, those have been the 7th and 8th Dev Diaries. Some interesting comments from Johan that you guys can go and read through right here. I'm not going to jump into those this week. Of course, I'll leave a link to these in the description and in the pinned comment, and you guys can check that out for yourself. All you got to do is go up to the top of the page, click show only dev responses, and you'll be able to see all the comments that Johan has left right here. That there won't be static trade and stuff like that. Interesting comments. But yeah, you guys can go and look through it yourself. So yeah, man, what do you guys think about two latest dev diaries right here, 7 and 8, regarding the economy aspects of EU5? I think the economy is going to be absolutely insane, and I'm looking forward to learning about buildings next week on the 24th. And I do think that on the 24th, you guys should see a video right on that date. So, you know, the dev diary will drop, and in just a couple of hours, I think I should have a video talking about Tinto Talks number 9. Very exciting. I'm very invested in the development of EU5, man. As you know, I think everyone, I want it to be good. That's all. I want it to be good. When you think about it, you know, it's sort of my job. So obviously, you know, there's a little bit of a different pressure for me here, but yeah, I just hope it's good. Almost everything we've seen so far, I'm liking quite a lot. I do think it'll be good. I do trust Johan Al-Gaib right here. But yeah, that's about it from me today. If you enjoyed this video, don't hesitate to leave a like. It really helps out a lot. And if you like the content and want to see more videos like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any of them. And you can become a member today and join the Discord. The link is in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time with another EU4 video. Or no, another EU5 Dev Diary video. Bye-bye.